TYFU.
Hello, Beth.
Hello, Marilla. How are you?
I'm lovely, as per usual.
You look lovely.
Thank you. Dressed up for you, as I
As
always
always.
do.
I'm super excited to see you.
I love that. I love that.
And record a new episode of our podcast.
Oh, incredible. Me too. I feel the same. So why don't we just jump right into it?
And rip the envelope open.
Take our envelope out and rip it.
And what do you got?
Our topic is copycat businesses. Copycat businesses.
Like the highest form of flattery. Copying is the highest form of flattery.
Imitation.
Oh, right.
Imitation is the highest form of flattery. Yes. What do you do when you have your business and it's your pride and joy and somebody opens the same thing across the street?
Has that happened to you?
You know, it was around the corner for me. It wasn't across the street, but it was around the corner. So it's not been exact, but I have had that situation in a little bit of a sense. And I've also been accused of being the copycat.
Oh, my gosh.
So, yeah, have you had this happen to you?
Yeah, in a couple of different ways. And sometimes I actually have been the copycat. I'm gonna
Like, truthfully, not just accused?
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. In fact, I was thinking just now about how we have in the store this blind date with a book concept, which is a used book gets wrapped up and we put a couple of keywords on the cover and we put a ribbon on it and we sell them for $5 and it's kind of like a mystery
I love
book,
that
like a
idea.
grab bag type thing. And people come in all the time and they're like, oh my gosh, this is the cutest idea. I love this idea. You guys are so clever.
So clever.
And every time that happens, I feel so immensely guilty that I can't just say thank you. I have to be like, well, actually, a lot of libraries are doing
my
this and
God,
other bookstores,
Beth.
and we didn't actually think of it ourselves, so I really can't take any credit for it. I spend like 45 minutes apologizing instead of just like releasing the customer to live their life.
and thinking that you're just a
and
clever
releasing
goddess.
myself, right? But I stole that idea.
And now the whole
And
world
now the whole
knows.
world knows. But yeah, I definitely copied that.
Well, we have someone here that is going to help us dissect this, and it is Christine VanDusen. Is that how you pronounce?
It is.
And she owns Blush, CVDesigns in Seneca Falls, a beautiful boutique. It's basically what TJ Maxx wishes it could be, honestly. So welcome. Thanks for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited, and this is a juicy topic. I have a lot of thoughts already, so
Oh
I'm
my
excited
gosh.
to hear your guys' perspectives on it.
Well, before we dig in, can you just say, have you had a copycat business copying you or been a copycat business? Can you relate in both senses? Or
Oh,
are you-
100%.
Oh, yeah? All right, good.
I feel like anybody in business, when they first get their idea of what to do, that idea came from somewhere. So you either went to a great place or you saw something and thought you could do it better, or, and we're all on social media, so we're inundated with other ideas all the time. So in some ways, I think all of us can be a little bit guilty of
for
that. And yes, I've had some that, you see some familiar things pop up, or, I've even been direct messaged and someone said, where do you buy that? And then next thing you know, they're carrying it. So, those things happen, but
Yeah.
I have a lot of, I try myself to be a promoter of other businesses, particularly local ones. The rising tide raises all ships kind of idea is something that I really try to practice. And I live in Seneca Falls, which there's a lot of room for improvement as far as the downtown. And so when it comes to businesses around me, I really try to push and promote them as much as possible, regardless of whether or not maybe there's a little influence going on one way or another.
I love that about you, and I recognize that, and I think we can relate to that a little bit in Geneva, too. It's like, I don't know, I feel like when you are a part of a city or town that's trying to rehabilitate their downtown and their shopping district, you want all the shops to be full. But there is that temptation every time you see like an opening soon, you're like, I am that way too, and I want everyone to open, but there's always that moment of like a little bit of a drop in your stomach. You're like, okay, what's it going to be?
Yeah.
Like,
I know. And the truth is, too, because for a long time, I was the only clothing and home decor place really in town that wasn't woman-made products, which is more like graphic
Right.
tees and things like that. But what would happen is we became a destination we had people who would do staycation weekends from Buffalo, and they would drive all this way, and then they're like, okay, where do we go next? And it's like, shit.
you just go outside and come back in.
It's like, I can tell you where to eat. And a lot of
Right.
times, too, I would send them to you. I'd say,
Yeah.
Geneva's a 15-minute drive. And so, part of me has to like put my own ego to the side a little bit.
Yes.
And, I think when we think of success and doing well, we think of like the fixed pie analogy. Like there's only so much pie. So if someone else is doing well, they're taking part of your pie. And so like I try to remind myself like, no, I want to make a bigger pie. So
Yeah.
we can all have more. I want everything to grow so that, we can all have a little bit. And I also believe in the quantum field. So I think putting good energy toward people works out for me, and hopefully if somebody's doing the opposite for you, I think they'll be receiving
It'll be
that
taken
end as
care
well.
of. Right. Yeah, I would agree. Beth, you mentioned that you've been copycatted, but you said that you've copycatted. You are guilty of copycatting.
Well, let's just admit it. None of us invented the idea of store.
Yep.
Right.
Like
we all
Christine
took the
said,
idea
yep.
of store from someone else. So right
damn
out of
it.
the gate, we're copying all the stores that came before us.
It's true.
To a certain extent. But yeah, like we offer framing, and I was, not the first frame shop in Geneva ever. There were other frame shops existing when I opened. And it's been a blessing to me that those other frame shops were supportive and inclusive, and maybe had so much business that they recognized there was room in the market for
Yeah.
other people. But then I was later copycatted when a person that I employed and trained opened their own shop around the corner, and that was a different thing. That was
Yeah.
a different kind of copy.
Yeah.
But I have to say, ultimately, it turned out great because there's nothing that lights a bee in your bonnet like getting really mad. So my shop has done nothing but benefit from that because I looked at my game and improved it. And we're up way more than we were before this happened.
Right.
So,
I think that's a good point.
yeah. Like ideally, this is what capitalism does in a way.
Right.
With that,
Be complacent,
theoretically,
you gotta step up your
it
game.
offers competition, and then
You
may the
rise.
best person win.
Yeah,
Kinda.
and that's a good point because I think that I can be, we all have that in us to be a little like, oh no, are they doing the same thing? We've established that. And I think that really just comes from a fear of, am I good enough? And
Oh, all right. Yeah.
and not wanting to change, like a fear of change. And I feel like even though it's uncomfortable sometimes when a business opens across the street from you or someone that you've trained opens the same thing, perhaps it's an opportunity to challenge ourselves to be better business people and
Yeah.
look at our business and say, okay, let's be critical about what could work better. And I think that you did a good job with that. Instead of getting caught in the fear and the dread and the, oh, that's so personal and hurtful.
Devastating.
You take that energy and you put that bee in your bonnet and
Yeah.
turn it into creativity and
Yeah.
improvements because then they can do whatever they want. But if you're
Yeah.
making the best of your...
It took like 30 seconds to see that, but then it
Yeah.
really did. It really did benefit my shop in the long run. And I'm grateful for it in kind of a backwards, convoluted way that you try to be when something kind of bad happens in your life, whether
Right.
it be in your store, your personal life, or whatever.
Right.
Yeah. And I know for me too, like I didn't go to school for business. I don't have any training in this. I worked retail, but at the outlet mall. Like I really went into this completely blind. And so I have imposter syndrome a lot.
Oh, sure.
So I think that that's a little bit of that fear that comes up too, is because you're thinking like, oh my God, am I going to be found out? Like they're going to know. I don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Someone's going to come in and they might do this better.
Yeah.
But like you say, it kind of like kicks you in the butt a little bit to be like, okay, I gotta sharpen up. What are we going to do? We got to be. And it's funny, I'm reading a book right now, Believe It by Jamie Kern Lima. She founded It Cosmetics.
Oh, okay.
And she talks about it. They were all about like foundation and skin products for women who had like rosacea, like real women.
Yes.
And, you know, she was talking about how like all these good things would come in the market, like highlighters were the hot thing. And people would be like, you got to do it. And she's like, that's not our mission. Like, that's not us.
Yeah.
That's
Right.
for them. And so she was like, and I was like, God, that's so true. And she talked about just staying true to your mission and kind of almost put blinders on a little bit,
Yes.
because we can be so influenced by outside forces. And I think the customer can be like onto you a little bit.
I agree.
The people who maybe are doing some of the direct copycatting, not similar, but copycatting, I think that, you know, people are smart and they can see if someone's just doing something because they've seen you do it and it worked and their heart isn't in it. I think, like I say, I think the chips are going to fall where they may on that, where, you know, they may not, that might not be their mission. That might not be their passion. They're just doing it because they've seen it work before.
Right.
So-
I think that's an interesting point. And I also think communication is key too. I mean, I feel like with so I just thought of something that I would probably last summer or so, there was a shop that opened that was like very sustainable. It wasn't the same thing, but you know, she opened and she had a lot of the same products, and she had been shopping at my store, and she had some things that were the same. I won't say a lot, but some things that were the same. And I remember having that conversation, processing the emotions and being like, okay, you know what? This is good for everybody. It's another shop that is focused on saving the planet. I will not gatekeep the planet's health. Even if my darkest moments. But I made sure to start a dialogue with this person and at least keep in touch and keep tabs, not to like spy on each other, but to be able to have
Aware.
conversations. And I have no idea if this was that shop, but last year or so, I had a vendor, one of my vendors, contact me about a product that is one of my best sellers. And they were like, hey, we're reaching out to you because, you know, we've worked with you for 4 years and we just got a vendor request from someone that's like in the same zip code. And we wanted to check with you because we do offer zip code protection because some places are very small. So anyway, they reached out just to be nice and say, we do offer zip code protection. Do you want us to move forward with this, or how do you want to do this? And I was really confronted in that moment because I was like, oh my
Tough
God,
position.
now I'm really exposed because I have to tell somebody else that I'm afraid of competition.
Sure.
And so I slept on that and I thought about it. And in the end, to my vendor, I did say, you know what? I would like to take the zip code protection because of the sizes of our zip code. But I said, I would absolutely beg you to give this person my contact. You can tell them we can meet, we can have a conversation about why I think that this particular market is saturated with this product. Like, I would love to talk to this person if they have their heart set on this. Like, I don't want to say no, absolutely, but this is my thought. And I told them, I said, you know, I have another business that's like 30 minutes away that has the same thing, and I love what they're doing, and I sent them your way. I don't want to like not sell your product. I don't want people to not do that. But they were very kind, and they were like, we completely understand. Looking at the map, it is really small. we'll pass on your information. And I never got a call, but I think that story just came to me. And so I think sometimes it's a case by case. I don't know if I did the right thing, but take that story as you will. But it's an interesting...
It is interesting. And I think, too, I think it's good that you evaluated how you felt. But I think, too, from a consumer's point of view and from the other business, I'm sure that there's not a crazy patent or monopoly on that type of product, that maybe they could offer something different.
Right.
And that might end up working out better for them and they wouldn't have to compete with you. So it might be like a win-win around, you know what I'm saying?
That's where my heart was behind it. My heart was that we would talk and I would say, listen, there's a million products that if someone else was selling this one and I was coming into the biz, I would want to know about all these other products that are so cool, similar, and it would give me an edge.
Because that person might not have. Oh, you said they did shop at your store?
I don't know. I don't know if it was the same person.
Because the truth is, too, is if they're starting a business and they don't know, they should know that someone else carries this. So maybe you should look at something else, you know, because if it were me, I would certainly not want to, number one, step on another business's toes, but also start out with like stiff competition. Because then it's like, well, people around here are very concerned about pricing.
Course.
So if it's 15 cents less,
especially if you're a small business, my God.
That's a whole other topic you guys can get into. But.
That's a whole nother podcast episode. We'll have to have you back to talk about pricing.
Yeah. I do love some zip code protection, though. I mean, because I've inadvertently tried to order something that someone else has in the region. Even.
Oh, so it was you, Beth.
It was not me. Because I definitely would have called you. And,
you would have.
Had a little confrontational moment. No, not really. I mean, I like it for myself. I like to know that I'm safe with this product for at least 6 months or a year or two. You know, maybe I'll let it go down the road and they can offer it. But I don't know. I think it's a nice thing, but you do wonder if it hurts the vendor. Because
I went through that.
Probably you, Christine, and I know Marilla, we all shop small vendors when we can, and we like to be able to support them. And we don't want to be restrictive about where they can sell.
Right.
But
which is why I was thankful that this vendor was very understanding of that, because I pointed that out. I was like, I don't want you guys to not have business. And they were like, oh, no. They were like, we don't want people to get fatigued if it's a small area seeing the same thing and, seeing the same if it's, I don't know.
Yeah, they have that protection for a reason. And I would think that it's, again, mutually beneficial for the vendor and for...
Hopefully.
Yeah, I would think.
Right. We've all sat around here and talked about very, gracious ways to handle this. But I think you have to allow yourself to be like, okay, they're just straight up copying me. Great. What? And just have that release, because like you said, sometimes it leads to something, because there are definitely some moments where you're just like, what are they thinking?
Well, that's why I think it's good to have things like this where you can talk to other people who will get it, because they're in your wheelhouse. They felt the same way. I mean, because another thing that we have to be careful about living in such small zip codes is your reputation can be spread so quickly one way or the other. And I do want to be someone who people think of as like, oh yeah, she cheers people on. She works with people. She helps people out. I don't want someone to be like, oh my God, no, she's a bitch. She's out for herself.
She's coming for me.
And the truth is I genuinely want to see people succeed. I really do. And the hard part is that when I'm mostly a good person, mostly. I like to think that I wouldn't do things that upset people, but I'm sure I have, and like you say, I think it's best that if that happens to just be like, listen, can we have a conversation, because this is just kind of weird, and I want the best for you. The person who reached out to me last year or a year and a half ago, they were going to be doing basically an identical product, something that was really big for us during COVID. And I think there was probably 2 weeks before I responded, because my gut instinct was like, are you kidding me?
Are you kidding me? How am I supposed to respond to that? Right.
And actually I ended up backing off from the product, because the truth was, I think it had peaked.
Right.
It was something that I was like, I don't think that this is evergreen. I think that this was really perfect for the pandemic. And I'm just going to kind of we do custom things for people when they come in. But I was like, I'm going to let her have this one.
Yeah.
And because it wasn't our original mission, it was something that, again, it was like a pivot for COVID that was amazing. But, and the truth is, I don't know how it's going for them. I know they're still doing them.
But it wasn't serving you as much anymore.
And so it was just one of those things where I was like, I don't want to be wishing someone ill. I don't want to be, and it was just like, you know what, maybe this is my sign to just be like, yeah, we're going to back off of that a little bit. So
I think that's another great moment where being copied was a gift.
Yes.
Right? For me, it was when the other person opened the frame shop. That was a gift.
Yeah.
And this was a gift to you because you probably wouldn't have analyzed it in that time in that way unless someone forced you to. And I think that your rebranding was a gift in a way, if we can talk about that.
Yeah.
Speaking of
let's
copying.
go there.
Yeah.
You mean my life of crime?
Yes.
Let's just
this
get
is a
into
true
it.
crime podcast as well. Sometimes.
It might as well be.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I would agree, Beth. And it's hard to say that. But, okay, the cliff notes of this is we opened Marilla's Mindful Supplies under a different name. And we opened our doors, a pandemic hit. The pandemic kind of seemed to be easing off, and we were like, oh my God, we made it. Like, we're going to be fine. We're going to do it. The summer is ahead. And we got a cease and desist letter. And at first I was like, oh, these cease and desist letters happen all the time. Like, oh, who cares? So I send it to my father-in-law, who's a professor of law. And I was like, do I need to worry about this? And he sends back like 5 seconds later, yep.
Oh.
And I was like, oh my God.
Oh, no.
And then you threw up, and then you passed
threw
out.
up and I peed my pants. No. Well, it was not what I expected. I'm very much it's going to be fine. And my father-in-law is very much it's going to be fine kind of guy too. Like, he's like, we can handle anything. Like, it's the family way. We got this figured out. And he was like, nope, this is bad. I was like, oh no. So they were this business was accusing us of copying their name, their copyrighted trademark name. And it wasn't the same name. It wasn't the same words except for one. But it was a similar store. And they were saying that we were creating a confusion for their customer. And because they spent the money first to get the trademark, and so they could defend it. And so then we were like, okay, well, we started first. We can fight this. And the lawyer was like, yeah, we can fight this. Just let me look at this. And I was feeling so plucky. And then he was like, it's going to be a 50-50. Mm-hmm. It's going to be up to the judge. And you'd have to go there. And it would be their judge. And it was just looking worse and worse. And it was such a stressful time. I mean, Beth knows I came in and I was like crying.
Yeah. With good reason, dude. It was a terrible time to be running a small business.
Yeah.
You know, period.
Yes.
And then to have this epic catastrophe happen with the trademark.
It was a lot.
I commend you for getting through it. But
Well, I had a lot of resentment. Naturally, I handled it with grace and poise. No.
she sure did. Like, she's joking, but she sure did.
Okay, from the outside, no. Yeah, I did. But I spent so many rage-filled nights tossing and turning. I was so mad at this person for just the moral of it all, like the morality of it, like how I would never do that. And here it was happening. So anyway, finally, after being like, are we going to fight this? Are we going to fight this? We realized that we needed to change the name, and my heart was not in that creative moment. Like, I couldn't think what it would be. And so finally, I don't remember who it was. Might have been my brother-in-law or my sister's boyfriend who was like, well, are you just going to call it Marilla's? And I was like, no, that's stupid. What am I? Some diva who's going to name a store after myself? No. Yes, I am. And we workshopped that. And I tried to think of every name in the book. And I was trying to think of refill store. And I was trying to think of sustainable. And I was trying to think of plastic free and zero waste. And it just, nothing was hitting. And finally, we came across Marilla's Mindful Supplies. And we realized, like what we've talked, that these zero waste shops and these plastic free shops are going to pop up more and more through the next few years. Like, we knew when we started this place that it was a movement that was happening, and it was happening fast, and we're gonna see more. And in that moment, I realized that we're more than just a fad. Like, what we bring to the business is a mindfulness and a focus and a care that is unique, and that Marilla's Mindful Supplies communicates that and also sets us apart a little bit from
Absolutely.
every shop that's named Refill, which if your shop is named Refill, that's fine. But for us, it wasn't communicating the encompassing brand. And so although I cried, I think, a lifetime of tears during that summer, like, ultimately it's been so much easier to build this brand, and we're still young, but it's just been so much more effortless now that we finally decided to rip the Band-Aid off, take the high road, don't make it ugly, and just take it as a challenge to do better. Like, don't stoop.
I think this is really reflective of things that you've both been saying throughout this discussion, though, too. Like, and I saw it at Stomping Grounds. The more of me I put into Stomping Grounds as an individual, instead of trying to copy other stores or be influenced, let's say that in a gentler way, be influenced by what's happening in the world, the more I put my own aesthetic in there, the more successful it's been, probably because the more unique it's been. Because it's
Right.
totally a reflection of who I am as a person. Your store being named Marilla's makes it literal. You know, it
Literally.
literally
Can't get away
reflects you
from
as
it.
a person. And I'm sure you feel that way too, Christine, based on things you were saying earlier.
Oh, 100%. And yeah, I mean, it's been wonderful to watch your journey. And I remember just being like, oh my God, that must be gut wrenching.
It was
because it
horrifying.
was. And you had the construction down here. I mean, you were just getting punched in the face like on a regular basis.
And here she is.
It was
folks,
horrifying.
And it's so,
standing.
hindsight is amazing how we're like, that really shaped us.
It was
But
so
you're like,
good for
God,
me.
that time sucked.
Oh, yeah.
But no, it's so true. And for a long time, I mean, when I first started the business, I was actually dealing with a lot of personal health challenges. And I had a hysterectomy. I was going through a lot of depression. It was really just a sad time. And it was showing on the outside. And we started carrying clothes. And I remember just being like, oh, I just want to be on camera with these clothes. I'm not an on-camera person. Like, that's very not me. But I was like, God, I can't wait till one day I can actually wear the clothes that we have. And like now, and during COVID, I started walking and I started doing all these things to try and be healthy. And I started showing my face. I listened to a podcast where she's like, your posts where you show your face will have so much more engagement. I'm like, oh, who wants to see my face? But it turns out people really want to see a face because, again,
'Cause it's you.
We have been raised with these globocorps that, they don't have a face. We don't know who's the face of Pepsi or whatever, So it's like they want to see the person and they want to root for you. People want to do business with people they like. And so like now I do try-ons of our clothes.
And it's so unique for you.
And it's, one of my staff members was at the OBGYN and the woman goes, I hope you don't find this strange, but are you the one in Blush's videos? So like people are recognizing us from that. And
Which
I
is
think
fun.
it's so nice. I mean, I think putting a personal touch into business will always win. Like, I think that will always beat out just like, Joe Schmo who doesn't really have a feel or a purpose or,
I think that's a good I don't know how you guys feel, but I think that's a good moral of the story, so to speak. Like, there's always going to be a copycat. And sometimes it's going to be you, and sometimes it's going to be somebody copying you. And sometimes it feels good because it feels flattering, and sometimes it feels bad. But you have to cling to why you started what you're doing and what makes you. And it sounds cheesy to be like, you're special, you're unique, just you.
Yeah.
But it's so true from it sounds wishy-washy and feel good and sentimental, but that's my business shark advice too. Like,
For real.
Yeah, there's something about each of you and me that's uncopyable, right?
And it's
even if I
essence.
tried to make a blush, I can't be Christine, or tried to make a Marilla's, I can't be Marilla, and you
Right.
guys can't be Stomping Grounds either.
So yeah, I guess if you're listening and you are the business owner that is starting out and you just discovered that you copied somebody and mortified, it's okay. Like, trust your gut. And if you're the business owner that you just read some announcement that someone's opening a store across the street from you that's a copycat,
Yeah,
it's still going to be okay.
it's still going to be okay.
Yeah.
Just use it as an opportunity to question yourself and decide what you're doing right, what you're doing wrong, how you're going to do better, and how you're going to grow and succeed, and how you're going to help your neighbor too at the same time.
Right.
Always. Like I say, one of the things that I always remember from a thing that I went to a long time ago, and they talked about resentment, and I think it correlates with negativity, is that it's like drinking poison and hoping the other person dies.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so, I mean, if you had stayed in that awful headspace of how could they do this to us? They're
gonna
wrong and
get
we're
them back.
right.
Yeah.
It would have taken something from your business. And ultimately, in that way, they would have won. And in this way, I mean, you've won. You've kind of taken it in a new direction, which ended up being beneficial. And so, I think there just comes a time too where people are going to fuck you over at some point when you're in business. Like we say, you get roadblocks all the time. And so I think you have to just know, like, I'm resilient. I will figure this out. And as long as I am doing what I'm going to do, it's going to work, or I'm going to go down swinging, because,
right.
I mean, that's basically
Which
what
is-
you have to bring to the table anyway. So
It's true, which is what we're saying every day in the mirror to ourselves, knowing that you, Christine, are starting a podcast that's
Oh,
going
I know.
to be gangbusters.
It's so threatening to us. It's like, it was a
every
little
day-
we did have a little moment though where it's like, yeah. And then we realized the better Christine's podcast is, the better for all of us. The better
Yes.
our podcast is, the better for all of us.
yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, when you're
Yeah.
in business, I don't know
Yeah.
about you guys, but probably I'm worse at this, but I don't see anyone that doesn't come in my store. I very rarely get to go to your businesses or
Oh,
sit
yeah.
down with you guys
Absolutely.
over a glass of wine and be like, how do you do this? How do you deal with that?
customers.
So
Yeah.
the podcast was kind of one of my ways to be like, I really want to talk to these other amazing people who are doing similar things, because I don't know about you, but sometimes I feel like a Martian. I feel like I'm a
Yes.
little bit crazy. My family doesn't quite understand me all the time. And so I think it's good. And I listen to podcasts all the time. And most of the success and business people that I listen to are, 9-figure businesses. I mean, much further down the road than me, which is amazing. And I love listening to it. But I also want to talk to people who are a little bit more in my stage of business and find out what's going on with that, because it doesn't always relate.
I think the small business and the small town isn't always given a lot of attention, in media. So I think...
Well, not anymore, because now there's going to be 2
You got
mega
to.
podcasts. So you're here, I'll be there.
What is the name of your podcast,
The name,
Christine?
it's called The Relentless Podcast. Finger Lakes One is going to be producing it for me. And so it's going to be talking to people who are in business and just people who are, on a path in their lives. You don't necessarily have to be a business owner to listen. I think we're going to kind of have a multi-lane where it's not going to be strictly business, but I definitely want to talk to some people in business to start. So we'll see where it goes.
I love it. And then when you notice someone's neurotically focused on like a particular kind of customer or a particular situation, send them over to us and we'll just really dig into like copycat businesses or,
Get in there, yeah.
Yep. So I think this will be a long and happy marriage.
I love it. Like I say, there's plenty of room. And I think the last stat I heard was that the podcasts out there were in the millions. So,
Let's
but
make it
again,
1,000,001,
not around here.
1,000,002.
I don't know too many that are doing what we're doing. And this isn't theory. That's the other thing about it, is there are a lot of, self-help gurus and motivational people. And I want to hear from people who are doing the work, who are, in it. So I think you guys have an amazing thing going here. So I'm excited.
Well, you too.
Thank you so much for being here. We
Thank
appreciate
you.
your
Thank
time.
you.
This was awesome.
Yep.
Did a little self-reflection tonight. This
Yes.
was good.
Well, thank you so much. We'll see you soon.
We chat about the biz, it is the way it is. Thank you for understanding.
We sincerely thank you for understanding. Please visit us at tyfupod.com to learn more about the show, share prompt ideas, or tell us about your own small business experiences. We may include your story in a future episode. Find us on Instagram, Facebook, or YouTube at tyfupod or on tyfupod.com. Our theme song was composed by Marilla Gonzalez. The show is produced by Kelly Walker. Too bad for Kelly Walker.